Something feels completely different about this Philadelphia Eagles team, and the ripple effects from this past weekend are about to flip the entire depth chart upside down. Just when everyone thought the roster hierarchy was set in stone, a single preseason game in Foxborough shattered expectations, exposed glaring vulnerabilities, and created battles that coaching staffs usually only dream about having. If you thought this August was going to be a quiet walk into the regular season, you better think again, because the front office is working the phones, and the pressure is at an absolute boiling point. If you love pure, unfiltered football breakdowns and want to stay ahead of every massive shift across the league, go ahead and hit that like button, share this with a fellow fan, and subscribe to the channel right now. To truly understand the massive shift happening in Philly right now, you have to look right at the coordinator booth. There was so much skepticism surrounding the offense after a clunky, lifeless outing in Baltimore, where the team barely scraped together 159 total yards and a miserable 6 first downs. But moving the offensive play caller up to the booth completely transformed the tempo, rhythm, and spatial execution against New England. The Birds orchestrated extended scoring drives of 77, 62, 56, and 52 yards, racking up 301 total yards and moving the chains 18 times. What made this unit suddenly look unstoppable after looking so disjointed just 7 days prior? The answer lies in the sheer spatial design and chess match misdirection. We finally caught a glimpse of an evil genius at work, dialing up heavy motion into the C-gaps and setting up devastating play-action wrinkles that gave receivers wide-open green grass. The offense looked less like the static, predictable unit of last season and more like a fluid machine utilizing split-zone toss action reminiscent of the league's top offensive minds. When you see Darius Cooper running wide-open off-motion layer concepts and getting explosive yards after catch, it creates an unmistakable feeling that this scheme is going to give opposing defensive coordinators nightmares once Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dontavian Wicks unleash it at full speed. Yet, while the play design generated open targets all night long, the backup quarterback play produced two completely opposite realities. Tanner McKee came out looking calm, poised, and utterly in command of the offense. McKee dissected coverage, delivering strikes with precision as he went 16 of 22 for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns, effectively locking up the primary backup quarterback job with an exclamation point. On the other side of the coin, the veteran Andy Dalton looked completely lost. Dalton struggled to find any rhythm, missing open reads, misfiring on routine throws, and finishing a bleak 3 of 10 for just 44 yards. Across 2 preseason matchups, Dalton is sitting an alarming 6 of 16 completion rate with just 64 yards and a passer rating hovering around 50. That massive drop-off naturally leads directly into the biggest conversation hovering over the entire league this week. This brings us straight to our question of the day. With Andy Dalton struggling and the front office actively searching for roster upgrades, should Philadelphia look to trade Dalton immediately for veteran wide receiver depth like Mac Hollins from the Patriots, or should they flip backup tackle Fred Johnson to the Rams for Big Tight and Davis Allen? Drop your take in the comments below. Let me know which trade scenario you would pull the trigger on, and tell me who wins the backup battles. Consider the reality of those potential trades for a second. The front office made 5 trades late last August to reshape the fringes of the roster, and the current dynamic screams that a deal is brewing. New England could desperately use veteran insurance under center, and flipping Dalton straight up for a physical 6-foot, 4-wide out like Mac Hollins would instantly solve Philadelphia's severe lack of size on the perimeter. Following Johnny Wilson's knee injury and subsequent shift to long-term injured reserve, the tallest active receiver in the rotation is Dontavian Wicks at 6'1". Hollins provides immediate size, special teams brilliance, and red zone leverage. On the flip side, the depth on the offensive line is so dominant that trading from a position of surplus is a legitimate possibility. Backup swing tackle Marquil Bell has looked like an absolute mountain out on the edge, refusing to surrender a single pressure on 11 pass blocking snaps and grading out as the top offensive lineman on the field. When you have a talent like Fred Johnson being coveted across the league, calling the Los Angeles Rams to inquire about 6'6" tight end Davis Allen makes incredible football sense. The Rams are completely jammed at tight end with Colby Parkinson, Tyler Higbee, and newly drafted assets, making Allen an expendable, high-value red zone weapon on the final year of his rookie contract. The only reason Philadelphia can even entertain these aggressive trades is because their depth in the trenches has been downright historic. Under new offensive line coach Chris Cooper, the reserve unit is performing like a starting caliber wall. In Saturday's victory, Jake Majors recorded 26 pass protection snaps while allowing 0 sacks, 0 hurries, and 0 quarterback pressures. Interior maulers Willie Lampkin and Drew Kendall gave up 0 pressures across their reps before being pulled early like verified starters. Lampkin in particular is looking like a tactical cheat code. His ability to pull into the second level, climb instantly to linebackers, and clear massive paths without requiring help from his adjacent guard has turned heads across the entire coaching staff. That frontline dominance paved the way for explosive ground production, with Will Shipley averaging a dynamic 5.1 yards per carry and finding the end zone, while Carson Steele turned heads with a ridiculous 6-catch, 84-yard receiving performance and a touchdown out of the backfield. When third-string running backs and backup linemen combined for 173 yards and multiple scores with Saquon Barkley watching from the sidelines, it sends a loud message to the rest of the league about this team's baseline power. Defensively, the violence and intensity on display was just as shocking. Ty Robinson, famously nicknamed the Vanilla Gorilla, delivered an absolute clinic on interior disruption. After a rookie year spent fighting through the ranks and battling on the scout team, Robinson exploded with 4 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits, and 2 devastating sacks against New England. That gives him 3 sacks in just 2 preseason games, playing with a ferocity and leverage that essentially locks his spot on the final 53-man roster. When you pair his emergence with defensive tackle Gabe Hall, stringing together 3 straight disruptive snaps against the run and pass, the interior defensive line looks as deep as any unit in modern football. The second level provided just as much electricity. Linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr. played with lightning-fast instincts, recognizing cadences, timing his blitz through the A-gap with perfection, and crushing Tommy DeVito for a statement sack. Trotter looks like a starting linebacker right now, and while high-upside rookie Jahad Campbell will get every chance to develop with the first unit, Trotter has proved that the defense will not miss a single beat if called upon. Then came the moment that made every scout in the building drop their notepad. International pathway edge rusher Joshua Uchegbu, who only put on football pad for the first time 3 weeks ago, generated a jaw-dropping speed rush to record his first career NFL sack, along with a tackle for loss. The sheer stride length, bend around the edge, and closing burst to drop the quarterback was unreal for someone with practically 0 formal football background. You cannot expose a physical freak like that to the waiver wire. Paired with UAR Bernard collapsing the pocket and securing his first 2 NFL stops, the defensive line room is developing raw, generational athletic traits at a terrifying rate. Of course, not everything out of the film room was flawless. The backup cornerback room remains a glaring area of concern heading into the regular season. Seeing names like Khalil Ringo and Ambry Thomas struggle in downfield coverage highlights just how big the drop-off is behind the starting corners. Sean Wade managed to punch out a forced fumble in consecutive weeks, but the consistency of the secondary reserves needs urgent tightening before real games begin. That urgency carried right onto the practice field this week as the team returned to work. The atmosphere was charged with the return of elite offensive firepower, as Devonta Smith and Mekhi Lemon both returned without restrictions. Seeing Smith, Lemon, and Wicks all running simultaneous routes with the starting unit produced what witnesses described as the sharpest passing performance seen all summer. Jalen Hurts looked crisp, connecting on deep strikes down the sideline, ripping slants over the middle, and finding Lemon on rhythm boots out of the slot. The injury report did create a few anxious moments, with minor knocks surfacing for Markeel Bell, Willie Lampkin, Eli Stowers, and Quinyon Mitchell, alongside the release of J.T. Gray and running back Jandon Jackson being waived with an injury designation following his scary departure on Saturday. Fortunately, Jackson has full movement in his extremities and is recovering well with the medical staff. As training camp wraps up and the final preseason kickoff approaches, this organization stands on the edge of massive decisions. From the emergence of young stars and explosive new play designs to looming trades that could reshape the roster, the pieces are falling into place for an electrifying season. Every snap from here on out carries massive weight, and the foundation built over these past few weeks has set the stage for an unforgettable campaign.